are listening to Pub Royalty Queen Podcast, a place to empower women of color in the music business. Welcome to Pub Royalty Queen Podcast. This is your host, Janisha Jones, back with another special guest. Today we have Mimi Camara. Mimi is Senior Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs at Encore Recordings, a full-service independent music company helmed by Interscope veteran Joey Manda in Beverly Hills. Mimi is also inducted into the Recording Academy as of last year, and before joining Encore, spent 10 years at Atlantic Records, where she represented artists like Cardi B, Saweetie, and Wale, among others. I've had the privilege of building a new relationship with Mimi as we're both advocates for women of color in the music business. She just exudes big boss energy, so I knew I had to have her on the show. So without further ado, Mimi, welcome to Pub Royalty Queen Podcast. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing great. Thank you for such a warm welcome. I don't know about big boss energy, but I do know about grateful energy and just leaving the door open for other people to come behind me. So Absolutely. That's what I'm about. And I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to have you and to start building a new relationship with you. I know we've had a chance to sit down privately and talk about a lot of different things, but I hope you can insert some wisdom to some of the other young girls that are aspiring to come into this industry. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Let's talk about your journey into the music business and what roles led up to you becoming Senior Vice President of Business Affairs at Encore.
So I would say that my journey is not linear. There are a lot of circles, restart, and all those great things. I went to law school directly from college. And after law school, instead of working at a firm and doing the traditional path into entertainment, I decided to work in-house at a luxury skincare company. And what led me to being SVP and what was really important about that position and what I've been fortunate to find at each phase of my career is that I've always had a supervisor, a boss, whoever I reported to, someone who respected my entrepreneurial spirit and someone who let me test the limits so that way I could get to where I wanted to go. So while I was doing skincare, it was very hard IP. Like we're formulating men's grooming products. So I was dealing with licenses. I was handling the trademarks. I didn't do the patents, but I was overseeing the process. And whereas some people will want you to be like 100% focused on this and just make sure we get that done, my boss at the time, Marcos Strakotos, he was like, look, I help you, you help me. You're making sure that I don't lose money and you're making sure that I'm looking after my business. I know that this is your dream. Why don't you, when you leave at 5 o'clock, develop your own practice? And he put those seeds in my head and I started taking entertainment clients as soon as we had that conversation. And from 9 to 5, when I was there, I was completely dedicated and focused to that. But after that, I was networking. I was in all the clubs. I was meeting up and coming producers. And I was just trying to be where I wanted to be in music. And from there, I decided to work in-house. I had the pleasure of working with Michael Kushner and Margot Scott, who are considered the giants of this legal and business affairs game. And it was like going to law school again. And long story short, from there, again, having people push you to do entrepreneurial things, I ended up at Encore.
Wow. I don't know why she says she don't exude big boss energy, because that to me sounds like big boss energy right there. You had an opportunity to work with some of the heavy hitters, like you said, just to be in the room and take in that energy and that information. That's a lot. That's something to be very proud of. A lot of people don't get that opportunity.
it was nerve-wracking. And, you have moments of insecurity because you're coming into the number one label in the country and you don't know anything. And you're sitting in a room with Margot Scott, the woman who knows everything about everything. And it's so easy to fall into imposter syndrome and feel like you don't belong and feel like, oh my God, I don't have the drafting prowess that she does and I'll never be able to make it. But you find your own voice and you find your own style and your own way of getting things done. And here I am,
That's
still trying to
amazing.
make it till I make it.
Girl, we all in the same boat right now. We're all just, using the knowledge that we have, which actually we need to give ourselves some credit for. What we do is something special and it's very unique. Not everybody has those talents and skills. So we definitely need to just hone that and own it. Who would you say were the mentors that helped you coming up in the business, and how important is it for you to have mentors?
I wouldn't be here without mentors, and I wouldn't be here if not at every phase of my career, I had somebody who took interest in me, wanted to make an investment in the future. And I mean, I'm only 34. I've had my law license for 10 years. And for me to get to this place at the pace that I did, it's because of having mentors at every step of the way. I'm thinking about when I was working as an intern in the business affairs department at True TV. I'm thinking of Raymond Chick and Erica Monroe Kennerly taking the time to speak to me about what a first right of refusal was, like these little bits and pieces. And they're also personal ways of molding you, because it's not necessarily just about, do you know how to put stuff together? It's also what is expected of you in a corporate environment. I went from so early on in my career being the boss and having direct report to a CEO. And it was a small privately held company. So the culture was, it felt like two friends hanging out every day. So to go from that and go into a publicly traded Fortune 500 company, all of those things, they're skills that I didn't know. And I'm thinking of Jennifer Baltimore, who's now at Universal Music, but this is another person who's an early mentor that I had along the way, simply telling me, when you want to check in with your boss, send an email and ask for a standing weekly. So that way you have status, what's coming down the pike, what they want you to focus on. And when you're ready for your semi-annual review, you've had 52 or 26 opportunities to not get bombarded or blindsided at the very end.
That is such a great point. You're absolutely right. Having those weekly check-ins, or even just like, hey, what are your expectations for this project? Because I want to make sure I'm doing it properly. Or, hey, I need a second pair of eyes on this. What do you think about this? Like, it's so useful and it helps them too, obviously. They want to be on top of the things that they're going to be in charge of. And ultimately, if you're falling on the wayside with your projects, they're the ones that take the brunt of the responsibility for that. So yeah, it's a two-way street in that regard.
Exactly.
So there are so many challenges to women of color in the music industry. Can you describe for us one specific challenge you've had coming up?
That's a very, very good question. I would say my biggest challenge there's so many challenges, but I would say that my biggest challenge to date is not physically looking the part that other people expect to see in an attorney or see in someone with executive leadership. I was at Warner Records from 2019 until 2021. And it was a hard position when dealing with outside parties because everyone thought that I was my boss's assistant. And it would be like, well, can you schedule a lunch for me and Julian? Or is it possible that I, could do this and that? And it's like, well, actually, I'm not his assistant. I'm, one of the attorneys in the department. And then it becomes, oh, what do you work on? Oh, Sweetie's on your roster.
Now they respect you.
Friends. Yeah. And it's just that I wanted to change how I looked, how I talked, how I dressed to meet their expectations, but it was very uncomfortable because it's not me. And if I wanted to be straight laced and buttoned up, I would have gone the firm route. I would have gone to Cadwalader and just enjoyed my life. But I chose a creative industry and I chose a creative lane because that's who I am. And I see power in being approachable. And I wouldn't want to
Yes,
diminish my power just to make other people comfortable.
absolutely. And you know what? We spoke a little bit about that too during our first meeting each other about the expectations of professionalism, what that sounds like and what that looks like. And so often we're coaxed to having to change very like personable things about ourselves to accommodate and or assimilate into the culture that is expected of us. And I feel like that's an unfair thing to have to not be able to show up as your full authentic self. So can you speak a little bit on that or?
And it's such a waste of time. If you think about it, Monday through Friday, and in the music industry, Sunday through Sunday, you are devoting your brain energy, you're devoting your body energy to working. So to not be your authentic self for most of your days, it's such a waste of time. And the older I get, and especially as a mom, I'm very conscious about what I'm giving my energy to. And for me to put forth so much energy into being anything less than myself, it's a disservice to me. It's a disservice to my company. It's just an uncomfortable waste of time.
Absolutely. And you've got that kind of energy that when I first met you, it's like you could take on so many different things. Like I know you're a mom, but then you're a high powered executive. You're in the legal world with there's a lot of stress that comes with managing clients' expectations and getting what you need as far as a representative of the company. Like, can you talk a little bit about the challenges of having to juggle the work-life balance?
Every day. So I'm very new mom. So I can't speak with as much eloquence as someone who's been doing this for 5 years or someone who has more than one, but I have one girl on the cusp of being one, and I'm learning something new every day. I work in house. So the one thing that I would say is the expectations that I manage are not as stressful as like a pure artist side attorney that has to really corral the artist directly. However, whenever there's something brewing within the artist team, they do come to me to figure it out. So it's kind of like a secondhand expectation in that sense. I don't know what the right word would be for that. But I can't give you an answer because I'm still trying to figure it out. I try as much as I can to be hyper organized.
I can attest to that. That is something I noticed right out the gate. I'm like, oh, she got it down. She got a method over here. Like,
there's a method to my madness always. Like every minute of the day is assigned and spoken to in some sense. If it's not work, it's the baby. If it's not baby, it's the house. So I use my Outlook calendar as my best friend and trial and error. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, so I'm going to fall flat on my face. I'm going to be late. I'm going to make a typo. I am now just trying to learn not to be such an overachiever and trying to give myself grace for failing because I've failed more between 2021 and 2022 than I've failed in my entire life. Like I used to be the girl that turned things in like college and high school and stuff. I never had to ask for an extension. That was my title. That was my thing that I bragged the most about. I went through 20 years of school and I never, ever, ever
Pause for a second. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. 20 years.
Like high school, college, law school, middle school, all of those things.
Gosh.
I was always the kid that turned their assignment in first before the deadline, never asked for an extension, nothing. And now here I am, things are taking me a minute, and
Mhm.
it's better to pause and be thoughtful and turn over paper that's perfect than to be running around like a chicken with its head cut off just for the sake of saying, I did this before you asked. I'm not late. I'm never
Mm.
late. Out in the universe. I'm still never late. I'm
Yes.
still meeting my deadlines. But instead of having a gold star because I got you what you needed within an hour, maybe I'll take 3 hours and feel better about myself.
Yes.
You're not going to notice the difference anyway.
Yes. Oh, that's such a word. We need to give ourselves a little bit more grace and credit for the things not only that we achieve as professionals, but give ourselves some time to really take in our personal lives as well. Like a lot of times, I feel what happens is that we're meshing the two. Like our professional lives become our identity. You know, it's hard, I'm sure, as a lawyer, someone who's dealing with contracts and deadlines and obligations that exceed you, to have to like say, you know what, pause. This people aren't gonna die if I don't do this tonight. You know, but my kid needs to get fed tonight. And
Exactly.
you know,
That diaper needs to be changed now, and I can't wait
yeah,
until later. And
yes,
I think that me leaving Warner was also the light bulb moment when
mm,
I realized that my job can't be my identity anymore.
yeah,
And I felt like I bled Warner Blue in my body, and it was just such a part of me. And then when I had to leave, it was just like, oh, wait, who am I without this company? My work friends, I mean, there's great people, I love them, but at the end of the day, like I had other friends before Warner, and it's like, okay, we're not in the building anymore. What happens to those really? It just taught me that you have to find happiness and fulfillment for things that matter to you, not
yes,
using an external validation or an external scorecard, because the minute they move the goalpost, the minute you're not there anymore, what makes you happy?
right, yeah. And that's something that we could talk about in terms of like not just professional life, but in a romantic situation too. Any relationship, really, like your attachment to certain things or people can prevent you from actually seeing the truth of you, like what it really means to be yourself, what you should intrinsically value within yourself. You know, when
Like,
you're attaching yourself to other people and their expectations. I know we talked about this. We kind of have similar situations, but I feel like we need to learn how to not have the loyalty to ourselves first, you
yeah,
know, and our happiness.
it's so true. And I think that, yes, make your own happiness, fall in love with yourself first, and be there for you because you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
the rest of your life. I think as Black women, as women in the music industry, and now for me, a woman of a certain age in Los Angeles, I should say, it's people are like, the minute you find somebody, you need to stick onto them because you're never going to find somebody
Oh
else. And
man.
you, I don't want to say settle, but you get comfortable because you're scared of the fall. So in my situation, I overstayed my welcome in a marriage that I probably, well, I'm not going to say that I shouldn't have, because I think that there's a reason for a season
Hindsight
and
is always 2020.
I don't regret any of my relationships at all, but I probably held on a bit longer than I should have because I'm thinking, well, I'm a Black woman. Statistically, I'm not supposed to be with anyone and I'm supposed to be single. So I have someone. Who am I to be upset?
Right.
Women in the industry, you're trying so hard to move the needle and get a promotion and get into that C-suite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not time to be on Bumble or Tinder or whatever. You need to just focus. So it's like, all right, I've already crossed this off my list. I can really focus on work because I don't have to focus on finding that.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy being single. I'm more happy by myself than I ever was in any of my previous relationships.
I can co-sign that as well. I'm definitely in a happier place than I've ever been. I feel more myself. But that's also kind of a scary thing because you can get comfortable in this space of I'm good by myself, actually.
I
That you
mean,
don't have the blessings that someone else might be able to offer because you're like, well, they're not meeting my XYZ, all the check marks. So what's the point?
so I've never, I'm kind of weird in that sense. I don't have like a checklist, and I don't have I need this, this, and this, and this in order to entertain you. It's kind of just been a vibe thing, or it's just been like oh, wow, you really looked out for me. I should
Mm-hmm.
probably entertain you because
Does he
you're
care?
for me as a family member. So
Yes.
whatever. But I think the only thing that I'm thinking about in terms of finding someone is what I'm gonna do when I'm older. So that's the
Mm.
only kind of scary thing. Like, okay, what am I gonna do when I'm 80 or
Mm-hmm.
70 or whatever, and I'm by myself? But it's just I have so much more time now to be proactive about my dreams and to be really fearless about the things that I want to achieve because I don't have that partner. It's kind of addicting to be
Ooh,
able to serve yourself to the highest level. And I just want to enjoy that right now.
I love that. I am so on board with that too, girl. Let's, you know what? In 10 years from now, or when we're older and we're looking back on our lives, at least we can say we've been there. You know what I mean? We've both been married. We've both
Right.
experienced what that ultimate commitment looks like, and it just didn't work out for us in that way. But at least when we're older, we could say, you know what? I'm over here chilling on a yacht in Italy. Life
Exactly.
isn't bad. What would you say was your mama I made it moment? That moment you realized you were on the right track, and what characteristics do you attribute to reaching that point?
As a music nerd, being profiled in Hits magazine was that for me.
Mm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking as an adult, being actively as an adult, reading that, trying to keep up with the
Mm.
rumor mill, who's who,
Mm-hmm.
which seats are moving. And I remember interviewing with people and thinking, oh, you were a hits noisemaker 5 years ago, and this, that, and the other. And to see myself on the hits list, it was just crazy. And it was definitely the highlight of my career.
What did you do to celebrate?
That is a good question. What did I do to celebrate? I screamed, I screenshotted it, I sent it to like 18 group chats,
That's
and I kissed
awesome.
my kid.
Yes, we have to celebrate our wins, ladies and gentlemen, especially you ladies out there, because we work so hard and a lot of times we aren't recognized for the hard work. I always just like to say that I feel like a lot of the burdens of life and people's expectations are laid on our shoulders. That when we do accomplish things and when we do go above and beyond or are acknowledged for these things that we contribute to the greater scheme of the music industry, we're just having to like kind of pat ourselves on the back and move along, you know? But you need to be able to celebrate them. Because like I said, not everyone is able to move in that way. Not everyone has the ability to do what you do. So I give you your flowers, girl. You deserve them.
I received that. I'm very uncomfortable with thinking about myself and very uncomfortable and celebrating that. I don't know. I just feel like I am the most regular person that you will ever come in contact with. So I appreciate all those
She's
nice things
humble.
you say about me, but it's really not that deep.
You're humble. I'll say that for sure. You're humble. And that's great. Humility goes a long way in this industry. What I've realized though is that white constituents don't feel like that. Like they don't move in that same way. I feel like there's some there to acknowledging and actually putting it out there. Hey, I'm a boss out here. I'm moving in ways that, you know, the average person can't do. And that way you are able to really stand in your truth as well. There aren't enough of us in these leadership positions. And so that's just my 2 cents on it, girl. You deserve it. Don't feel, bashful about it. You are the shit.
I think it's definitely like a class thing too, because I think it's easier for somebody else who sees their parents in the C-suite already, who see their parents being mentioned in the Times or whatever. It's easy for you to know how to receive that and know how to have the PR spin and use the words to keep yourself in the room. But when you come from a working class background, and thinking about my parents, they're in the service industry. My mother was a nurse working in the hospital. It's literally a matter of life and death. She has to put her head down and do the work. Otherwise, people die.
Right.
And thinking about my dad, when he was here, he was a cab driver. That's ultimate service professional. I got to take you where you need to go. If I don't do that, I don't get paid. So I have a very just keep my head down, stay out of the way, and get the work done method. And I think that's very much just a function of being a working class person. And I don't care what title, what company, what anything that I work at, that'll always be my MO going forward, because I just think it's more in touch with reality and knowing what's important and what's not.
Understood. And I receive that too. I think for the purposes of this podcast and inspiring others, we need to learn to just sit with that accomplishment, though. You know what I mean?
I can't fight you on that, because on the flip side of things, you're so busy doing the work because you're not telling people what you do every 5 minutes. That's why you get passed up and passed over for promotions and open positions and stuff like that. And I've seen that happen to a lot of people of color. I've seen that happen to a lot of women in general.
Selling ourselves short.
Like, here's intersectionality. Being Black, you're going to be passed over. Being a woman, you're going to be passed over. Identifying, having a different gender identification or a different sexual preference, because you're so concerned with assimilating, because you already have an other that you feel like is blazoned upon your forehead, you're not going to spend time patting yourself on the back or having the loudspeaker telling people what you can do and what you can't do, because you're so focused on making sure that the bros still invite you out for beer, for hockey, or the hockey game or whatever. As you can see, I probably wasn't invited by too many bros because I don't even know what we're doing at the bar, but I think that's what it is. So you're right. Yeah. You sit in accomplishments, and you should speak them up and raise them up every now and again.
Yes.
You're going to be looked over.
It's a fact. I can attest to that. That's been one of my experiences of always just kind of like playing small and being the fly on the wall, doing my job, which, is always kind of garners some respect, just the type of job that I have. But at the same time, me not speaking up has prevented me from being in rooms that I probably could have been, has prevented me from moving up in my job title, which also equates a lot of times to the money that you're able to take home. So that's something that I just definitely want to put out there to the women that are watching or listening. And then the men that were also listening, like, really allow women to step into their role and take ownership of it and of their accomplishments, because I don't see guys really holding back when it comes to sharing what they've been able to contribute, how important they think they are. So we should be able to do the same.
I saw a tweet from Barry floating around that everyone's been like reposting lately. The music industry, it's something to the effect of the music industry is the only place where people are getting like promotions and getting in the rooms off of stuff that they don't do. So to further amplify your point, or, even just being in the room where a hit was made, to amplify your point, if you don't stand up and take credit for what you did, someone else is ready to do so.
It's a fact. So we're not doing that anymore in 2022 and beyond, ladies. We're getting our coins and we're standing in our truth. All right. What advice would you give aspiring women of color in the music industry?
I have so many things that I would like to advise people. First thing, to go back to what we were discussing earlier, is be yourself, be your whole self 100% of the time. I think that being honest and being true with my desires, my personality, and what I want to do, it takes the stress and anxiety out of working. And then I'm able to be more productive and more fruitful, pleasurable to be around because I get to be myself. And it's like, if you're faking it, let's say you fake your way all the way to the C-suite, you could end up as with a job that you didn't even really want in the first place. So you're in the room, but you're with a function that doesn't suit you, that doesn't fit you, and you're spending Monday through Friday counting down until 5, 6 o'clock so you could go be yourself for Saturday and Sunday. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like coming to work with long hair on Monday, short hair on Tuesday, red hair on Wednesday has not hurt me in any way. I'm 1,000% sure that someone might have received my informality, for lack of a better word, as not being ready to handle a certain caliber of artist. But when I got the artist that people thought that I could handle and I handled the shit out of it, I got to do things on my own term and accelerate at my own pace and win my own race. So I would say that's number one on the list. Number two, check in with yourself a lot because you're so busy chasing the title, getting the press announcement, that when you actually get it, you don't get to enjoy that you finally got here because you're so busy looking at the next thing. And conversely, it might not fit you either. So you have to be honest with yourself and kind of have a discipline of introspection so you can continue to just actually make it on your terms.
Oh, wow. So many gems in there. So many gems. Yes. I mean, to the point, showing up as yourself so that you're prepared for the blessing, so that you're prepared for what's to come. Because, like you said, you might find yourself in a position where that's not even what you really wanted, that you're now being regarded or have more responsibilities than you initially intended for, or that you just don't have the capacity to handle. That's something I haven't heard yet. That's valuable, very valuable.
It's just, I mean, I'm not a suit and tie person. When I say that, I'm thinking about the time at Warner when I was contemplating redoing my wardrobe and coming to work in a suit and tie or like a normal dress thing every day. And I'm like, where would that have gotten me? I could have maybe made it to corporate. I could have maybe been seen as like a responsible person and done more of those back end deals, but would that suit me? And it wouldn't, because I live and die for the artists that I sign. I live and die to be like, I'm the person who will give up time to just go in the studio just to be there and to have the first breath of what's coming out. So it's like putting on the suit might make people not mistake me for an assistant. So I win on that end, but that's going to divorce me further and further from the creative process that I've wanted to sit in since I read the liner notes on Crazy Sexy Cool. So
I hear you. Thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful. If there was one thing that you could have done differently, I know you said we don't really live with regrets over here. We're kind of just learning and taking the lessons in our trials, but I'm sure there's something that happened in your, on your way up that you kind of wish I mismanaged that wrong, or I would have done something a little bit different. What would that have been?
So I think for me, it ties back to an earlier conversation that we were having on relationships. And I told you I'm 34. So between 2006, 2010, that's when everything was happening. And I wanted to be in that mix so bad. And there were so many different like internship programs that I wanted to go for. But I was scared. I was scared to go out there by myself. I was scared to go take an unpaid internship, especially somebody coming from a working class family working for free. You still have bills and stuff to pay. That's a crazy thought. But I think too, wanting to spend more time with someone that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with ultimately just pushed me away from like trying, because I'm thinking, like, I think about it now and I'm like, girl, you could have worked at Lord and Taylor at night and did your internship in the daytime or vice versa and found a way to do it. And who knows, maybe I would have discovered somebody. Maybe I would have written a hit song. Maybe I would have met the dream and been his second wife. Like, I don't know. It's so many things that.
Shout out to the dream.
The dream, Sean Garrett. I have a thing for writers. Anyway, so many shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And I wish that I bet on me in my 20s instead of betting on myself later in life.
I hear you. Wow. Thank you. That was great. I feel the same way. I think about like where I could have been if I didn't involve myself in a serious relationship in my 20s. You know what I mean? Maybe I could have been a lot further along if I had devoted my time and energy and resources into me and not cultivating a separate situation, and then also trying to mold myself into what this other person wanted me to be, instead of just, the girl that has always known she wanted to be in music and a big boss out here doing the music thing,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly that.
So, what are some common misconceptions that people have about women of color in the music industry?
I think the misconceptions are aligned with general misconceptions about Black women in general, that if you cut them, they don't bleed, they don't bend, they don't break. They're just the ultimate pinnacle of resilience, and they're superhuman. And I feel like it's the stereotype comes from somewhere, because like, yeah, Black women have no choice but to excel, because like you can't even meet the requirement. You have to excel. And if you don't excel, you're not going to keep your job and you're not going to progress. So I think it's rooted in something, but as a sensitive
slavery.
Well, yes.
I'm sorry.
No, it's rooted in something. It's rooted in slavery, and the results are real. Like every Black woman that I know is out there killing it and is out there working damn hard to make sure that she does kill it. So that's what I mean. Like there's truth to it, but speaking for myself and myself only, I'm a sensitive individual. I cry. I'm going to thug it out at the end of the day, but I feel, I'm not superhuman. I get tired. Sometimes I want to take a nap. Sometimes I want to run away. And it's just, whereas women of other races are afforded the ability to be the damsel in distress.
Oh, talk about it.
Afforded the ability to be weaker. It's just,
and that be an endearing quality.
Right. Like, oh, she's soft, she's sensitive. We'll let her push through it. It shows that you're a person because you're showing me how soft that you can be. And I think that it's a plus for them and it's a negative for us. But I mean, as much as of a negative it might be, this goes back to being 100% of myself. I can't fake it when I'm upset. I can't fake it when I just can't. And I think that the people that I work for and the people that I work with appreciate my candor and it makes my working life tolerable because I know that I can say mercy and you're gonna like let me be for a little bit.
I feel like you just read me because I'm a sensitive person, but I'm not a emotional person, or at least not like outwardly expressive of that. And I need to, there's something in me that feels like I just need to power through with a smile on my face. And for some people that comes across as, oh, fake or whatever, but it's coming from a genuine place because I just want to see the positivity in everything ultimately. And then my life isn't bad. So when I look at the like
Exactly.
overall, I'm grateful still for all the things. So I can't express my anxiety or frustration in tears, although I do understand the power of just letting it out. Just letting it out, and then you're able to actually say, oh, you know what, I felt that way, but I can move through it.
You brought up something really great because I think that too, as Black people, people that are moving across social ladders, you have a sense of survivor's remorse. So
Mm.
I struggle a lot with being overwhelmed in my current life, which is the life that I prayed for 10 years ago. And it's like, I have the life that I prayed for now. But then when I feel bad about being overwhelmed by it, you feel guilty because you know what it's like when you didn't have anything. And you know
Mm-hmm.
what it's like when everything was a struggle. And especially for me, being a Haitian American and having a first generation American, and like most of my family is still in Haiti, and like you see the struggle and the
Yeah.
destruction, and I'm here being overwhelmed because I have 3 meetings scheduled for the same time, and it's like, oh my god, my nails are not done and I got to meet this
Mm.
artist with ugly nails, and it's like, really, this is what I'm overwhelmed about, when I know that my cousin is trying to figure out how to get formula in a place where there's no mail service. So I apologize for crying, but I just
Absolutely not. Get out of here
told
with
you I'm a
that.
sensitive person. At least now you know I'm not lying.
Well, you know what? That's such an honest moment, and I appreciate you for being as open. And you're absolutely right. We do get pressured into thinking that we have to put on the face, the mask, and just wear it all with, oh, I'm proud and happy and all of this, but we're human. And this life is about, I think this life is about suffering, going through the pain, and
Mhm.
seeing how you're able to triumph and come out of those experiences. And the thing is, because of your experience, you're showing people where you're from how to reach their level of success, whatever that means for them. So the fact that you're living in your truth and in your power, honestly, that's even more of a reason for you to shine and be grateful and happy and expressive over what you've accomplished. Because then you can just say, you know what, it's been a journey, but I made it. I'm here.
I can't say that you're wrong.
Yes, girl. And I
I
love, thank you
cannot
so
say that
much. I
you're wrong.
feel just like privileged to even be able to have this kind of relationship with you where you can open up and really talk about things that are touching to you.
Well, you brought it out. You said it. I just jumped down the rabbit hole with you.
In what ways can women advocate for one another and build each other, lift each other up in this industry?
It is very important for us to do that. I think that we adopt a scarcity mentality. Most of us get duped in the thinking that there can only be one Black girl at a time. There can only be one girl at a time. So we're so focused on resource hoarding that we don't look
Mm.
upwards to see, to question the master, the puppet person, the person allocating the seats, to be like, why can't there only be one Black girl at a time? So I think the most important thing that we can do to lift each other up is to just always remember, until We have the keys in our hand, we don't have the keys in our hand. And it's fair and it's not real and it's a farce that there can only be one of you at a time. The music industry right now, with all these women rappers being successful and having their own lanes, their own sounds, and each has $1 million plus whatever in their bank account, is proof positive that there's always a possibility. You just got to push for it. So I think breaking out of the scarcity mentality and embracing the fact that somebody has to come after you is the way to get ahead. If I want to be CEO and I'm sitting here as head of business affairs, I can't be, even if Joey comes down tomorrow and says, okay, you're CEO. I can't be CEO and take on that job until there's another business affairs person sitting in that seat. So the minute that we as women, we as people of color, we as Black women, whatever category of oppression you want to put on it, the minute that you realize, embrace, believe, and act on the fact that you need somebody under you in order to go up, everything changes.
I'm receiving that right now. I feel like I needed to hear that. Because I'm like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Like, and you're giving me the keys right now.
It's so funny when we were in person and we were in the office, I noticed all the successful executives were always talking about headcount. Always headcount was, I had no idea what the word meant until last year. I'm not gonna lie, but it was always white men and like the successful women and Black executives that I knew were doing something and moving up. They're always talking about headcount. Why are you talking about headcount? Because you know that in order for you to do your job better, you need junior people. You need people in your department in order for your department to function the best. And when your department functions the best, then you get looked at for more leadership. And it's like, oh, duh. I mean, it's something that I always knew in my heart because of like critical race theory and being on the bottom of the totem pole all the time. So it's just like, just me naturally thinking if there was 10 of us, we would outpower them. But just being, back in the days, being in that corporate situation, it's just like, well, and I'll see the people who have the cool titles overworking themselves to overachieve, but instead of delegating out, they get burnt out and they can't even think about nurturing a next class of people because they're so busy resource hoarding. So that's
speaking to my soul, like, I needed to hear this. Okay. So now I know what I need to do. I appreciate you. Like, what is it gonna take? Like, I'm over here just like putting in all the effort, trying to do all the things where you're saying, listen, delegate. Learn how to delegate and pass the torch, because that's what's going to help you to elevate most. Girl, I feel like, what have I been doing all this time?
Figure it out like all of us. I'm still trying to figure out how to delegate, but I'll get there eventually.
Useful. I appreciate that piece of gem that you just dropped on us. So first of all, I appreciate you for being on the show. You're just an absolute beautiful spirit. The first time I met you, I felt like just the warmth that came from you. Also, the fact that, again, you're a mother and you're able to set aside time to do stuff like this. It's kudos to you for being able to find time for yourself and to give back in this way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. So what can we expect from Mimi in the future? What projects are you working on that you're excited about?
So the thing about being an attorney, a lot of things are subject to confidentiality, but just know that Encore is out here and this roster is shaping up to be something mean and serious. Stream Mike Dimes, string that up. That was our first flagship artist. And it was just a pleasure to do something without putting all the business in the street. It was a pleasure and exciting to come up with a different way of doing business for such a talented person that was beneficial for him and beneficial to us. So the fact that I can say that Mike Dimes was our first act, it's something that makes me super proud. And in Dimes We Trust, run it up. That's all I got right now that I'm at liberty to speak of.
I appreciate you sharing as much as you could. And again, I'm just grateful to have you on the show. Where can people connect with you if they're looking for you?
If you're looking for me, I'm on Instagram. My is @it's Mimi Martine. I'm there chilling. Just reach out when you need me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mimi, for being on the show. Until next time.
Until next time.
Remember, stay positive, inspired, and true to yourself. Go out there and kill it. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Pub Royalty Queen Podcast.